So in this video, I want to take a look at a game which is a pretty long game, but I'm not gonna go over the whole thing. But I will say that I probably should have lost this game. I did not play very well, and my opponent played decently until the very end. And well, it's a very important psychological thing to be able to know when to keep playing for a win and when to just know that it's a draw. And as you will see at the end, it is a dead drawn position, which my opponent just kept on playing and blundered, and well, I was able to win the game. So I had the black pieces, and my opponent played this move g3, which is also what he played in one of the previous games that I've analyzed. I guess he's trying to avoid theory, but he's not really being successful at it, either in terms of avoiding theory because we transpose into more or less known openings, and also because of the result of the games. So I just keep developing my pieces: knight f6, bishop g2, e6, knight f3, knight bd7, and this is starting to look more or less like a normal position if white ever plays c4. Then this will resemble a queen's gambit declined, or if I played c6, maybe Slav defense. So castles, bishop e7, and now c3, and this is kind of like trying to play a Kali system with white, except you're fianchettoing the bishop. So he's kind of playing like a hybrid system, but in the Kali, well, you're planning on attacking the black king, and it's not something that my opponent does. In fact, he played a similar system, I guess, hybrid Kali with this bishop on g2. So I'm not really sure what the deal is. Rook e1, so obviously he wants to go e4. So I challenge him in the center with c5, and now he goes e3 again. Kali-like system. Rook b8, knight bd2, which is what you do in the Kali, except in the Kali you want the bishop along this diagonal so that you can checkmate the black king. So I just expand on the queen side. e4. And well, as you can see, the computer thinks that black's already equalized because, well, black's wasting a tempo going e3 and then e4. So I captured, and after the knight recaptures, I take, hoping to get an isolated queen's pawn position, which we do, and just try to play against the isolated queen's pawn, which has been successful for me in the past against this particular opponent. And now I just play bishop b7 so that once the knights move, I can trade bishops and expose the weaknesses along the light squares. So after knight takes, bishop g5, knight d5, blockading the pawn so that white doesn't have the option of pushing the pawn in, trading it off. And well, we trade more pieces. Rook c1, rook c8. Maybe I should have played rook d8 instead. Queen b3, attacking the pawn, so I just defended with a6. Now my opponent played this very strange move, a3. I think a4 would have been better, just to put more pressure on the pawn, forcing me to defend it once again. And after queen f6, this move knight e5, and here I played a blunder, knight b6. Much better was just to trade rooks, and well, one of the lines was the queen going back to d8, which I would never play such a move. I think it's too passive. Queen g5 I like better, attacking the rook, and well, queen d1 is the engine stop choice. And I thought, well, why not play f4? But you can't, because, well, then I can just take it. You can't recapture because you hang mate in 1. So after knight b6, I'm already in trouble, as you can see. But instead of playing the correct move, rook takes c8 check, my opponent traded bishops, which allows me to stay in the game. So I trade rooks first, and then play rook takes b7. There is no back rank checkmate because the knight is guarding the square, c8. And after queen b4, g6, just to make a lift for the king. Although maybe h6 was better, just because the queen is on the dark squares. And after queen d6, well, I don't like this queen being just so inside my territory, so I played queen e7, and after rook c6, I traded queens, thinking that I would be alright in the endgame, which I should be, but it's difficult to find the best moves in a blitz game. So here I played knight c4, hoping that we would trade. Now tactically it works because, well, I'm attacking the pawn as well as the knight. So if he takes my pawn, which he did, then I just take the b pawn. And after h4, I go back with the knight. Although maybe h5 first would have been better, just to slow down the expansion of the kingside pawns. So he goes g4, and then I decided to trade knights. Maybe not the best idea, because now maybe with the knights I could still play for a win, but with the rooks now I can't really do that. And here I played h6. I should have played b4, and well, if you take, then after takes f3, I should be able to hold this. I mean, there is no mate, 4 against 4. I could, if white moves the rook or the pawns, then I can play rook b2, and now the king is not going to be able to do anything. It's just going to be stuck on the first rank, and I should be fine. But after h6, well, now f4, and white has more space, and well, if anything, this rook is going to be cutting off my king, and this king is going to be a lot more active, which is going to make the defensive task very difficult for me. So I try to activate my king, but I mean, you can see that the king on d7, you know, compared to this king, the computer says it's a draw, but well, it's a lot easier said than done. And here I should have played rook c7, although b4 is also good enough to draw. Instead I blunder with king c7, and now I'm much worse, if not losing. So king c5, h5, just to try to trade more pawns and hopefully have some weaknesses, like this pawn or this pawn to attack with my rook. So rook a5, and I realize that I'm gonna lose a pawn, so rook a7, king goes back, which I like that move because that means that my king can get a little bit more active. And now I played f5, which apparently is losing according to the computer, but I thought it was my best practical chance. So if he takes en passant, which happened in the game, then rook f7, and well, all three pawns are isolated and weak, which is strange because just a few moves ago you had this very healthy pawn structure for both sides, and well, just after f5 and takes, well, now even though I'm down 2 pawns, I'm gonna get one of them back at least. And now I'm down 3 pawns temporarily, but okay, here I get one back. Rook c5 check. And well, the reason I allowed my king to be boxed in was I was hoping for potential stalemate tricks. If I could take both of these pawns, then maybe check the king so that if the king moves, it would be stalemate. If you can imagine this pawn and this rook and this king all being pushed one square downward. So king c5, and I checked, which apparently is a blunder. I should have just taken the pawn on h4 immediately. And after takes, well, takes, and this is a simple draw, especially since it's an e pawn. And well, my opponent knew that he was winning at one point. I knew he was winning, but I mean, there's really nothing to hope for here. And we just keep playing because, well, my opponent is not gonna resign. And okay, here my opponent was coming to this side of the board to attack my rook, but now the king won't be able to get back in time to protect the pawn, so this should be a very simple draw. And here I was expecting my opponent to take the draw, but he just kept playing, so I wasn't going to look at the clock to see how much time we had because we probably only had a few seconds left. And well, here my opponent just blundered, so he took the rook, and that was that. So yeah, I should probably brush up on my rook and pawn endgames, especially when I'm defending, even if the material is equal. So I hope that you liked the video, and if you did, hit the like button and share and subscribe, and thank you for watching.